I wanted to start just by dedicating this reading to the memory of Keith Waldrop and just sending a lot of love also to Rosemary Waldrop and all of the writers all over the world who are missing Keith and thinking about Rosemary right now. And for anyone listening or here who doesn't know their work, to take a look at the amazing poetry and translation of Keith Waldrop and Rosemary Waldrop, both poets and translators, and their press, Burning Deck, that for 50 years brought so much beautiful poetry to the world. And he passed yesterday in Providence, Rhode Island. So I'll just read one poem of his. This is from The Ruins of Providence. Lullaby in January. Bravely, it seems to me, you close your eyes as if never doubting that the world remains visible, even though you yourself see now only side effects of sight. What you can't see is that it has begun to snow hard, as if to fulfill a prophecy of fatal winter and its fierce, foul frosts. But we have this enclosure, a space set apart from the inhuman cold outside. It always amazes me how much sleep you need and get, and with what ease sleep takes you, evening out your breathing as in the most spiritual exercises. Just past midnight, I'm securely awake, the hour of my birth arriving with a wicked downdraft. These rooms, at not quite room temperature, support a thought of green lawn, croquet parties, seasons gradually turning the house around. We wait for it to happen, and it seems to me that anyone who sleeps heroically, trusts unreasonably that something will come again out of nothing. I have 3 new books, which is just crazy and wonderful. So I'm going to just read a tiny bit from the other 2 and mostly read from Practice Has No Sequel. I've been writing a series of books that each book is for a particular writer whose work I've received so much from their work and their lives. One for Rosemary Waldrop. This one is a book for Lynn Hygenian. It's called Intaglio Daughters, and it follows her book, The Unfollowing, which is a book of sonnets, and how do I say it? She says it so much more articulately, but when a stunning loss happens, it's hard to believe that this is happening. So it's a form of elegy in which she attempted to write that no line would follow the next line. Of course, when you read it, it follows beautifully because our minds create the gap. So I was wondering, in thinking about elegy, what follows unfollowing, especially considering that the losses keep coming. So I turned to the form of the rondo. So in my book, every poem starts with a line by Lynn, and then it ends with a resounded version of the line by Lynn. Here's the first one. So the first line is from Lynn, from the first poem in Unfollowing. The streets are walked by she who fully backwards walks them emptily. Long ago there stood in the midst of a country covered with lakes, a vast stretch of moorland with worn covers, possibly bent, pages stained, on edges foxed, yet all text remained visible, tales with torn ends followed, where falsehoods become persons. When entirely spent, we put our hands in our sockets and continued following what we imagined were the steps you might have taken. I had no intention of continuing to write elegies, yet every night I dreamed of finding you inside a locket circumscribed by this wood, an empty envelope, even when cast in gold, is not the threshold. 2 drops of water, a cloak and mussel shell are not the sea, or the sack bigger than oneself being dragged into the dark. The sheets are stopped by she who fully lacks words and locks them credibly. Do one more from this. This is number 14. She lowers owlets into your arms as if they weren't complete without them. Day after day, I composed rows of words which would not speak to me. My nervousness amounted to an enormous or insurmountable absence, punctuated by dying. As they fall, the leaves guide themselves by light. When you left, they were still children, not the fear of adulthood, but the unlikelihood and the color we describe as she hears it in her head, an unrest we cannot translate. As for the grand in grandmother, I suspect her of reading, of returning to beginnings, of receiving the allegorical. Loss would have us revert to childhood, retrieving nonsense, which was never nonsense, very, very quite unburied, despite culpability. I know how to stuff myself into the unsaid. She sews eyelets into your charms as if they weren't discreetly anthems. This is Letters Inscribed by Snow, which is a hybrid epistolary prose poem kind of a book about who is an artist, or what is a writer, or what does that mean? Is it a mirage? And this, I just want to thank Erica Baum for her beautiful art on the cover. And what pages did I say? In a gallery, a 4 foot by 4 foot square slab of ice, opaque, white, inset several feet below the floor. Around the slab is a question cordoning off the area. How difficult could it be to solve for authorship? A plaque on the wall upon entering the small room reads, "Letters inscribed in snow." Our eyes are blank, bare. The artist who used a pseudonym becomes a non-deterministic solution, the number of agents who installed the question obscured by departure. Failure to identify the artist cracks the ice of an unwritten book. Surely the real author or the real artist would burn blue lights in the evening. I want to be writing my new novel, but I have not begun. I've hidden my gardens underground. My thoughts are sewing threads. When the right theoretical question, which I plan to steal, falls in front of me, I will begin. And one of the central dialects will be, are the icicles asleep or are they dead? And another will be, what is a letter? What does the snowdrop inscribe? Or maybe the book is made up entirely of archaic crystals found on the pavement, or about to be performed by a vanished ice sheet, or fictional accounts of kissing roses, or a dying planet drawn as a forest thicket across a city diadem. Sitting in a cafe, I put down the few words on a rose I had been reading. They were published under your name, but I was doubtful. You have many names, and this was one encoded by a regiment of snowflakes. The snowflakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came, the larger they grew. No sequel. So I wrote a book several years ago called Practice, which is formally similar series of prose poems that are meditations on contemplative practice and loss and bafflement. And so when I found myself writing something that seemed to be a continuation, I thought Practice has no sequel would be the title. So I'm going to read, there's 3 sections in the book. I'm going to read out of order. First, I'm going to dip into the last section, which is called Ceremonies for Words, Ceremonies for Words, and read a little bit skipping around, and then I'm going to read the entire middle section of the book, which is called A Weaving, and that's about 10 minutes, and it's really a journey or a visitation, a meditation. So I don't know, feel free to lie down on the ground if you want. Turn off your camera. Let's see if I can read from my paper and hold the microphone in my left hand. The atmosphere pressed like 1,000 handkerchiefs. Forget fluttering delusions of others when there are no others. Stop keeping company with thoughts, even one's own thoughts, coiled at neck ridiculously like an enormous cloth bow against the mouth, around the throat of any subject turned dust or memory, kneeling in a garden, or a sharp blade precedes the alchemy of any kitchen. So we are given edges in order to cull and cut, darning needles, fine broken figments in rows, torn, rudimentary, glistening. No postcard resists, not even paper revels. Only the trees were truthful. A lighted window was just a picture. Why wish for an unblemished frame to stop thought or absolute silence? Indigo lakes and crowns exhumed from shadow is the wish to step out from a carriage gowned as if from the pages of a favorite novel, a poor cognitive distortion. If everyone arrives and keeps beginning, moments replay forever. How to stop? We are not here in reverse. A walk, unpaginated. How? Must attend my birth, step away from pastimes of forgetfulness and lament, and move toward the double section of fence blood, approach last stitch in repair of the picture outside my window, remarked a former storm, a fallen tree, and other manners of replacing things, where belonging in parallel planks is more or less forward, walks in garnet, robes and names. Pearl skies plied and air makes no sound. Clarity stuns as if this picture were electric. A little thing that softens nothing falls more distinctly than form into non-entity. Skies entirely made. Gaze reverses blue from chrysalis. I bed myself, but could not glue myself down. How to enter gold, not as color, but glint, actualized, not all in one day. Walk to mailbox, where guarded cards escort, viscous, hollow. Light returns, writes back, unafraid of ancient night. So what if there is no definition for a glowing room? I glued myself on paper and went out. I went to the well, went up twice, once to a place, handwritten, and another time to say aloud, I am going, as in the life of any letter, instrument, hand receives alphabets as a series of demitas, adagios, priestesses, foretell until, place bursts, some tissue forgets, having sent notes, positions, alongside ruins. Shall I go now? Or pause to say, waiting, curtsied, going out. What does it look like? Waiting, curtsying, and if I do, go again to the well, in diaphanous waves, in the myriad ways. Ladybug with white eyes, red carapace, witness. I once believed my wilderness to be perceptual, sedulous. I offered inscriptions as proof, disappeared like a dress made of smoke, stood on a scaffold examining thresholds built in secret, gallows. I was led exceedingly slowly, coaxed like the woman bound in every ballad, mouth on fire, children flown. To avoid further peril, I crept beneath the frying pan until all that remained of me was neither prefix nor suffix. I lifted my elytra, unfolded underwings, and flew. Anybody needs to move, just feel free. This is a weaving. My guide waits on the other side of a tall and hollow glossary. She is butterfly, jellyfish, headdress of hyacinth, gold mist in school play, memory loops, never happens, gaze incinerates, hurry, turrets and decks, cloaks, stalks, a bamboo gate, wordless excuses. I ask her why she wears such a fluttering vocabulary. I'm not only your mother anymore, she answers. I'm every woman of no particular age, no number is, she continues, stretching, boundless, ending in feathers, editing air, until it glistens like figures arriving through a waterfall, numerous. One age is every non-divisible motion, every part whole. I'm your mother from then, your mother from now, and also I'm not your mother. I'm future memory, transparent escort. I don't appear in any one way, in disguise or not in disguise, Siebel, alighted. I stand on a staircase, every inch winged, covered in eyes. As she speaks, I see her molten aspect and remember once she asked for anger. Moment billows, drifts. Does she speak with mouth of crinolines? Is sight occasionally crinolated? She goes on. I can be every role now. Under, stand. Is comfort dizzy? She repeats and beacons or gaze, encourages me to follow. Fear as if she were fastening around my shoulders a mantle which could repel my own hiddenness. I descend some steps and see a visceral cave, a system of guttural levers, the interior of a hollowed-out body, as if I were stepping inside the carcass of an animal. Ask anything you want, I am told, and so. So is S-E-W, by the way, as it goes on and on. I descend to her realm, which first appears, my own disquiet, then vanishes, red thread when held, bursts into blossoms, clots, transfigured petals, oracles. She says, this is happening, who you are embedded, separate from thought. You see yourself as delicate, and yet you are also bursting. Unbelievable thread has become enormous coxcomb cloud. And then she says, of course you aren't only to meet the iconic. You are. Her, you were. Her, she was. You, and that means the one with the needle is not alone. And so I was. Iconic. Red candle, blossom, capillary, embroidery, sky. Inside the center arose from earth tiny flames into arches, inset with every step anchors in fire, and inside the center of every flame, crystal, well, that in every step, minuscule flame draws feet down, bright, to all beneath the surface, inside the center of every flame, a perfectly clear crystal, as if placed exactly beneath, invisibly, to assure passage through a landscape I could no longer recognize. So guided by underground illumination, when sight once again hidden, even dreams had been kept from me as protection. She told me, burst, saying, "You are not separate from amber," she said. Womb, waterfell. I said, loom, when I meant to say rupture, every version of her. She places her hands on my head and says, keep crimson, place red, stones to your throat, coal flames from feet, draw embers up to mouth, especially in speech. When you must be invisible, turn to done. Place yourself in forests of numinous cloth. Choose every form. You are not singular. All of this is at your disposal. The colors, the crystals, the flowers, the flame, burst into rooms, vestibules, blaze. And then I hasten to lengthen my patience as I gaze into one intransient moment. To run to the end of crinolines is to rush to the end of all destination, the ends of one. Pause, inhale, flame at throat and instep. I'm going to meet her, the one I have always known. I tell her I want to hurry back to the outer world so I can inscribe a red passage, a necklace of sky, this omnipresent meeting, to preserve her presence as if she were ephemeral. She implores me to linger, and now from middle distance, remembering as if time were a seamless loop one could twirl like a lock on the beloved crown of one, the way my father cut a lock of her hair just after she died. To leave is to cut. Why would I want to rush away from the one missed, ever living day? And here she stands before me, between selves and other moons, her body a threshold. No, I don't want to run boldly into any untold future, yet every future is unspoken, and I will not be permitted to stay. Why not be inside, meeting unceasingly, in the way each moment may open accordion-like, the way any person is infinity? Your opposite pushes like a wave back toward solidity, grief, ebb tide, mirage. Before I approach the curtain of water, the threshold of bamboo gates and rivers, light tumbling like sand, any granular understanding, define depth and color, and the impossibility of this passage I inhabit, she addresses this buried question of sustenance. Wait, she says, your form is here. Thought rushes to perimeters. Look at these knots in your throat where dread rooms in flowers. She begins to pick cobwebs of nets, of ropes around inside my throat. She detangles, or is she unstrangling, as if I were a rose bereft. Leadings at neck must be carefully shorn, and then my head dethroned, and shoulders restrung, and then, she said, your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, all hers, all of them, the waterfall is the loom, crowns parting and falling, Perplexed, I replied in wombs when I meant to exit. One knowing and unblinking, unreal passage, a tomb. I tried to unlearn my bias just as they appear when one walks down a street or along the coast to eyes anyone would say, I am not her, you are not I. Viewfinder, mender, mend her. With mended tongues, she continued, I am the one on the stairs alighted with winged eyes. I am the fox in the coxcomb. I am everyone and her reflection. And then she instructed me to translate this passage from her, from the you into the I, E-Y-E. And the I stopped seeing distinctions between self and other. When I wrote, she was not satisfied and finally asked me to recite what would eventually be in the mouth of every her. With mended tongues we continued, I am the wings on the stairs alighted, I am the red and the comb. Part one is every parting, every part of her, every reflection we mistake, oracular crowning of nothing. Thank you.